Hello and welcome to Neuromentoring. We are so glad you can join us.
I'm Lucy,
And I'm Brian.
and together we explore what mentoring is in these neurodiverse spaces we call universities. Today's topic is boundaries.
I like a good boundary. They're really, really useful, particularly on days like today. Now, whenever anyone is listening to this, it is being recorded on quite a hot and sweltering day, and it is pushing, I think, at least my boundaries. Lucy?
Yep, it's pushing mine, my attention span, my patience.
And it is that kind of thing that perhaps, if we were being wise, we may have recorded on another day, but we just really enjoy each other's company. And so hopefully later on, I'm just bringing up the ice cream. Lucy, what kind of ice cream do you recommend at the moment?
Oh my gosh. So I found this by accident. So it was a substitute for I'd ordered the Roundtree's watermelon ice lollies. Well, I didn't have that in stock, but I'll tell you what, this substitution was even better. So at the top of it, it's strawberry. Then the next fruit on the ice lolly is mango. And then the last fruit is kiwi. And it is another Roundtree's one. It is just
Oh,
kiss.
so I know I've got some fab lollies in the fridge, which have those wonderful colors in them as well. And it's one of those things that I use to, you know, rebalance my emotions when I'm hot, is I go and get the ice creams out of the fridge. But I'm also very aware of the things that I choose to do when it's hot outside. And I need to create more boundaries myself to make sure I'm not doing the things that leave me a hot, sweaty mess where my brain is no good, no good at all. Going into boundaries themselves, Lucy, is there any particular boundary as a mentor that you set, that you really need to set right at the beginning?
So I kind of had like a pro forma of my first session and sort of I have an idea, a rough skeleton of an idea of kind of the things. So there are things for some of the organizations I work for that I have to go through as part of their policy. So that might be making them aware that the support is confidential and if it becomes a safeguarding concern. It could be things like letting them know about the 24-hour cancellation, how many of those you get a semester. I do what I'd call the institution specific things first.
Yeah.
And after that bit's all over and done with, I try and open up a conversation where the mentee explores kind of what this mentoring process can look like. I try and then establish what it is that the mentee would like out of the mentoring process. And then I think naturally, if you're somebody that can honor boundaries, I feel like you can express them and communicate them in many different ways. But the hardest thing to boundaries is the discipline of it. I think when you're a highly empathetic person, which many mentors are, or many people that provide non-medical help, it's when to switch off your own boundaries as well as managing the boundaries of the student, which we'll go on to talk about later on, but actually kind of expectations too. So they're kind of enmeshed. A
Yeah.
very long way of answering your question.
No, brilliant. First of all, we start off with the boundaries which rightly should be imposed upon us. Student safety. You know, if we are worried or concerned and it's a safeguarding thing, it goes up the line. It's not a question of us having to think about it. Then there's the second bit about the sort of times, you know, just making sure everybody's happy with that. And then there's this process of negotiation, which then leads into actually there are times we may have negotiated a boundary, but because we're empathic mentors, we may step outside our boundary. We may have fuzzy boundaries. I'll give you a lovely example that just happened to me this morning. I had a student text me. He was going on a flight. Flights aren't good things for him. And I was traveling into work. It popped up on my phone. I saw the first thing and I thought, well, actually, I'm not going to wait till this afternoon when it's my time to answer these kind of things. I'm actually going to do this right now because he's getting on a flight very soon. And that bit overrolled it a little cheer. I had a really pleasant backwards and forwards text conversation with him on the tube on the way in. It was brilliant. And he had a lovely flight and now he's on holiday. It's those things that maybe we don't haven't chosen to do to start, but then override it just because it is needed at the time. It's knowing, deeply knowing in ourselves when it is the right time to be fuzzy in the boundary.
I think you've got to be fluid and flexible in your
Mm,
boundaries because ultimately, as a mentor, as a study skills tutor, when you are carrying out these non-medical helper roles, you have a duty of care.
yeah.
And that's where the boundaries can then become a little bit fluid, a little bit fuzzy, be stretched a bit, and occasionally be compromised.
So one of the phrases that one of the mentors that I was doing some research with used was the honestly dishonest mentor. That actually we're going to go forward to, and hopefully with our students, we're going to teach them to have some decent boundaries so that they can flourish and grow.
Mm.
But also we will know that those, once we've taught them, that those boundaries themselves that the students have will be slightly fuzzy. And likewise with ourselves, we say we've got these boundaries, but we're honestly dishonest. And we will actually say, yeah, actually, I will try to keep to my boundaries, but there will be some cases where my boundaries will be a
Mm.
little bit twisted, a little bit fuzzy, because that's the right thing to do. The honestly dishonest mentor saying, yeah, this is the goal. This is what we're hoping to get. But actually, we fail as well. And that's all right.
Yeah,
Being honest with that failure that we do, that slightly brokenness that makes, well, at least makes me a decent mentor because I know what it's like to mess up, to not be able to keep my boundaries, and then to hopefully the good comes of it anyway.
mm,
Honestly, dishonest mentor. That's an interesting phrase, isn't it?
I think linked to that, it's interesting when we think about, we share strategies, we come up with strategies, we provide advice in the best interest of the student, we provide this holistic support. And let's have it right. No two students are the same. So the boundaries within your working relationship between the mentor and the mentee will change as much as your approach will. But I actually think the funny is that when it's practicing what we preach. Prime example, I know I should be having 30 grams of protein every day for breakfast. I know the benefits of it as a neurodivergent person. Have I got the discipline in my private life to eat omelets and lots of yogurt and all the other high protein breakfasts every day? Absolutely not. Why? Because I'm a human being.
I'm with you. I had a black cup of coffee this morning. In fact, this morning I've had 3 black cups of coffee and that's it. And it is now nearly 3:30. We preach other things than we actually practice. And partly it's, that there is the good and optimal life. But also we don't want our students to be beating themselves up when they fall
No,
short because we fall short too. We have to be openly honest. We have to have the humility to be able to put that forward within the mentoring space.
absolutely. And I think there's enough pressure for, irrespective of neurodivergence or presentation, for students as it is to perform, to do this. And actually, the transition from, I'm taking this from a, a further education transition to higher education, any student that transitions really, really hard. But the mentoring space ideally needs to not feel like a demand. It needs to feel like a safe space for them to just be.
Yep. And to be together with someone who knows what it is, and excuse the language, to fuck things up because we will. And it's that, how do we pick ourselves up after things have gone wrong? We need the strong role models in our life that are slightly flawed and fragile in their own rights, which is where mentoring kind of sits as something deeply unique. We are the honestly dishonest mentors. We're a little bit messed up ourselves, but we're trying. And we're humble enough to be able to share that openly and vulnerably. And I think that's one of our deep, deep strengths as a profession.
I think we've definitely discussed this in the past, but it's about, as much as it's your responsibility to show up for your student, you've got to have enough capacity in your cup to show up for yourself. Because ultimately, if you can't show up for yourself, you're not authentically being honestly dishonest, and you can't provide the best support.
Chuck in here at this point the whole idea of the working week. we need to have those reserves to be able to do that, to be able to turn up. And actually being able to plan our working week is one of the ways forward. Lucy, what does your working week look like? What are the boundaries around your working week?
So interestingly, I'm actually changing my approach from this September. Now that I've been doing this role for quite some time, I have a much higher caseload of students than I've had in previous years. And I'm actually going to plan my week now on reflection. But actually, I need 10 minutes between each student to decompress, collect my thoughts, make sure that I've kind of finished all the notes I want to make before I move on to the next student. Because what I've come to realize is that I could have 4 bookings in the morning. I'll literally hop from one to the next, one to the next, one to the next. I
Lucy,
don't give
Lucy.
myself that break.
Ah, you need the break, that time just to realign, to,
Yeah.
shall we say, empty the bladder and get more coffee. Those wonderful bits where we look after ourselves, and having the little 10-minute breaks forces us to do so. Where I work at the moment, there is a culture of the 50-minute hour. And this is for all meetings, not just mentoring meetings. Any meeting that we have will, if it's scheduled for an hour, there is an expectation that at 50 minutes, we close it up. Partly because it's a bit of a sprawling campus and it takes 10 minutes to get anywhere. Partly because it's good for us to do that almost therapy. Yeah, 50 minutes, time up, move on. I think when I was doing lots of mentoring, so at one point I had a caseload of 32 students a week. I've never gone any higher. I don't think I could. I was making sure that I was having actually 15-minute breaks and sometimes half an hour breaks between students, even if that made the evening go on longer for me. I needed it during the day. It was after doing that for a while, I went for the other end of my things, and I moved to a 4-day week. Oh, I love me a 4-day week. If you can get a 4-day week, Lucy, oh, there's gorgeousness in there.
I think technically on paper have a 4-day week,
Yeah. But
but my day off per se is running the business. And in time, I will manage it so that I do get at least an afternoon off because I do need that time. And I know that the peak of my energy is a Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday. And I know that come Thursday morning, I can start to struggle. So it's about managing my energy accounting, my expectations of myself, and the discipline of setting the boundary that my work days are X, Y, and Z, and maintaining that. So I'm a work in progress.
work in progress, working towards 2 days off, 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off. Yeah, something like that.
I won't remember that.
Basically having Wednesday off if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I first came across the idea of 4-day weeks back before I was mentoring. After I was teaching, there was a year that I spent actually developing iPhone apps. Just, yeah, bit of a whim. And it was after the first few months of trying to do that 5 days a week and money was coming in, I suddenly realized that rather than giving myself a pay rise, I could do the same amount of work in 4 days. Maybe sometimes just be a bit more efficient with my time. And it, yeah, worked wonders for me. I was tempted at one point to go for a 3-day week, but I think I'd get bored at that point. So a 4-day week seems to work well for me. I work hard enough during my 4 days that I don't have to work the 5th day. I'm no longer in a profession where I get paid for the 5 days while working 4 days, which is very, very interesting. There is out in Ireland, there is an institute looking into 4-day weeks, and it has found that if you pay someone the same wage and just say to them, get all your work done in 4 days a week, they are 4 days, then they are far more productive than they would be if you just give them the time to work over 5 days.
Be
It's
interesting. It'll be interesting
fascinating.
what the overall findings would be. But of course, the hardest thing to get right, what you do with those days off.
Okay, I love 3 days off. I have one day off where I look after my house and my family. That's usually the Friday. And I go and I do the shopping and I do some gardening and I spend time, if there's anyone home, looking after them. Just, yeah, they're doing a day of service, I think. Then on the Saturday, and sometimes I twitch around, I just have a day off that's entirely myself. I curl up in a ball, I read some books, I play some computer games. It's a me day. And then I have the day for community where I'm involved in a church. I go and help out with that, but also any clubs and sports that I do. So one day for family, one day for me, one day for community. I don't always manage it, but that's my goal.
That's quite a nice way of compartmentalizing it because I'm still in the phase where I need to have no contact days off, screen-free days off, and as a gamer, as somebody who enjoys films, I do know that I need time off and time away from the screen, but it's very hard. It's definitely an addiction.
Oh, well, for me, my day off by myself is definitely in front of a great big computer screen. I like the escapism of it, but I also need that time where that call of the community where, I wake up in the morning
Mm,
thinking, oh, I don't really want to, but those people are relying on, okay, I'm out, I'm doing it, I'm with them. And also I need that sort of family. This is my house. This is my space. These are my little tribe that I love dearly. And having some time just for them turns it from just being, you know, 3 days of me, which I could do so easily. Or couldn't I just?
yeah. Now, see, in the winter though, summer is not. It's the one season I do not thrive. I can't regulate my heat. I struggle with the heat.
Yeah.
All sorts of things. Why I'm not a summer person. I'm all about autumn. I come to life in autumn. My house becomes a brown, gold, orange paradise. All my fireplaces just are just absolutely covered in autumn decor. I bake stuff. It's for some reason it's easier for me to engage with all of
Mm.
the things that I love. Typical ADHD, I have 100 hobbies. In summer, I find it so hard, and it's just like sort of in waiting mode. Or I do have my day off, I'm in waiting mode. But in the autumn and winter, oddly, I find it much easier to engage in my hobbies.
I love this boundary that is imposed from the seasons. And there
Yeah.
is something deeply important. The more sensitive we are to the world, and I know the autistic folks in my life are incredibly sensitive to the world, the more sensitive they are to the seasons and the passing of time. And living as we do in this sort of capitalistic haze where everything
On demand
might be on
24/7.
demand, yes. Living in our own little boxes with their central heating and their aircon, we're a little bit stepped aside from the natural world. Um, that's some of the research that we've been doing into perceptual capacity here at Craig has been asking people what their ideal working situation is. A number of people, neurodivergent folk, who have told me it's about a connection with nature. And it means
Mm,
we have to live with the boundaries of the season. That when it's too hot and we siesta. When it's too cold, we wrap ourselves up warm and play in the slush. It's accepting those boundaries that are enforced upon us from the turning of the seasons.
yeah, definitely. And I definitely dread when it goes above 20 degrees. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hibernation mode activated. It's going to be a hibernation day today. Going to be a little hermit.
I have a particular rule above 25 degrees and I can no longer wear my pattern DMs and it makes me sad. I have to
So
wear
what are the optimal shoe? What are the shoe of choice when it's not
the,
DMs?
the shoe of choice is a very easy loafer that you can slip in and out so you don't have to go around in shoes, which means I was this morning when walking in, there was a lovely little bit of grass just outside of the Quakers, which is not too far from where I work. And it's got these great big deck chairs. And just for a few minutes, I slipped off my shoes, flipped off my socks, and wandered on grass in the middle of London. And
Are
just
you
on the way to
grounded?
work, it grounds, it's that sensory needs. I felt very fulfilled. I had to be, yeah, it's the kind of thing I've got to make sure I don't come across as an absolute weirdo. But it's the absolute love of London is nobody really cares. Wandering around just in my
That's very
benefit.
true.
Yeah.
Well, in Interestingly, in the same vein,
Yeah.
so I sensory seek water.
Yeah.
And I now live in a situation where I have a lake at the
Oh,
start, not a lake, a start of a river. It's a river
yeah.
source
Yeah.
at the end of my garden, and there's a little weir. So when I finish work today, have a guess, in t-shirt and shorts, but I'm going to go and sit in that weir because the water levels are going down. So I can sit in it up to my shoulders comfortably,
Yeah.
listening to a podcast.
Oh, it is amazing. It is about finding these places. Okay. We were going to talk about boundaries. Here's another thought. Have we come across liminal spaces as an idea?
No.
Okay, liminal space is the kind of space that sits between the boundaries of our life. So for some people, if you travel a lot, airports are funny liminal spaces. I know that when I'm commuting into work, that little walk where I was walking with my shoes off, that's part of my liminal space. It's the bit between home and work. And so
Mm.
you're talking about this new sort of space and routine that you're going to where after work, before you become the Lucy that is Lucy outside work, you submerge yourself in as a liminal space, a space of creativity and transition. There's a lovely thought. Liminal spaces. It's what you get when two boundaries meet. And part of us having boundaries and time is we need to move into those liminal spaces. I really hope that the 10-minute breaks that you're planning on taking between mentees is going to be for you these little liminal nuggets in your life, this between space where you can actually do stuff in a different way.
So I think it will make all the difference because I can quickly unload the dishwasher. I can put the kettle on, put a wash on, hang a wash out. I need to physically come out. It's got to force me off of my desk.
Yeah.
Physically need to move because I need that separation from what is work bubble
Hmm.
so that I can come back with it fresh. I need to carry out a task that I might have not done all day and then left till the end of work and thought, oh, got to do that. It's optimizing where I can, getting my steps up, make sure I drink enough. Another
Yes.
honestly dishonest
Yes.
thing there.
Yeah. I was looking at
Um,
my coffee cup. My coffee cup's empty.
but going back to what you were saying, like another boundary that for me that's a non-negotiable is that I have to have the transition from work Lucy to home Lucy, because if I don't get that, I get very irritable and impatient.
Many years ago, when I was first teaching in schools, I had a 50-minute drive to and from school. And usually that would, particularly, this was, I didn't even have a CD player in the car. This was just me and Radio 4. It was last century. Yeah, last century, me driving to and from the school where I was teaching. And actually, as a newly qualified teacher in a very demanding job, I needed that full 50 minutes on the way home so that I didn't take Mr. Irvin home with me, because Mr. Irvin, he was a great teacher, but I don't think I'd ever want to share a house.
Can relate to that. So I sensory think loud music, and one of the things I used to love about teaching was actually the journey before my day and after my day in the car, music nice and loud,
Yeah.
where my brain was taken to what you were just explaining, to this space where I'm not home Lucy, I'm not
Hmm.
teaching Lucy, I'm just,
Liminal Lucy.
and I explain, there's no a word for it. I used to say that about swimming, that there's no demands, because in that swimming pool, you're not a partner, you're not, in your mind, you're not listening, you're just focusing on making sure you don't drown.
Even further into sort of poetic liminality. In swimming, there is the sky, there is the sea, and there is you creating this space in between the two.
Yeah.
There's something really lovely in that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So liminal space, that is an interesting tween boundaries, which actually allows a little bit of, I suppose, creative rest. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about 7 types of rest and creative rest, which doesn't have to be liminal. That just kind of fills in the gaps. But creative rest is part of the resting that we do. Alongside that, there is the need for boundaries around, I suppose, our physical rest.
Mm.
How do you boundary sleep?
So I have got accustomed to charging my room, charging my phones.
Yeah.
It's too hot. My brain's not braining. Charging my phone at the side of the room, putting all my electronic devices into airplane mode, and having an hour before I want to be asleep. I'm not somebody who reads linearly. I read lots of books at the same time. I pick my book. The quality of my sleep when I've honoured that boundary and that sleep hygiene is so much better than when I forget or I ignore that boundary. And then I might be able to fall asleep, but then I get up. So talking about practicing what you preach, when I do practice what I preach, it works. But we're all human beings and you can't always do that, especially when you're a neurodivergent person.
So this is where I'm going to say something absolutely foul and disgusting. For my entire life, it has taken me 30 seconds maximum to fall asleep. I take a deep breath, I close my eyes, and I'm asleep. With this ability to sleep, I sleep through everything. So once I'm asleep, that's it until morning time, I wake up. When I first started as a mentor, I was terrified of a student texting me, and a few, they send texts at all kinds of times when ideas go through their heads. I was terrified I'd miss one of these texts or miss one of these emails that was important.
Mhm.
And so I got into the habit of telling all the students that I met that this is just Brian and how I sleep. That if you send me an idea at 2 o'clock in the morning because it's gone through your head, I will get to it shortly after breakfast when I plug my phone in. It created a really nice boundary that I'm no longer worried about a text that would arrive in the middle of the night that says, the world is bleak. Because they knew that I would read that at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And you'd then get a text back saying, took you this long to realize?
See, interestingly, that's what me putting my phone in airplane mode. I share that with students very early on and always get back to them when I wake up. Because otherwise I can find myself I'm somebody that falls victim to, not victim. Okay. It's another word I want for victim, but it's not victim, but I'm kind of going to go down that line. I can be addicted to doom scrolling. I can slip between apps that I don't even normally access day to day. And then the rumination comes in. And then before you know it, I can't sleep. So very early on with students, I kind of say, look, if you text me at night, it's fine, but I won't receive it till the morning. And that for me is the boundary I put in place, airplane mode.
And by saying that, you are modeling proper digital hygiene for sleep.
Yeah.
Because they can see it working in you, it has more of an impact. So that's the sort of sleep rest that we need. We also need mental rest. How do you make sure that there's a bit of mental rest in your life?
Well, interestingly, I often talk about this. So obviously with the mental health mentoring, there is the requirement of supervision.
Mm.
Now, my my business, we provide supervision, but not all organizations in this to do. And a brain dumper as a strategy. What I said to Brian earlier, what was my business notebook is my everything notebook. I find as a strategy, there might be things where I might have had a long day, back to back students, lunch break, back to back students, where I might have had a really heavy session. And then I quickly jot down some notes. But then sometimes I remember more before I start my wind down routine and I have to get it down. And in place of supervision, for me, that's my strategy that helps because then it gets it out of my head and it means that I can do something about it if I need to or identify, okay, that's just something to note. And I found that's a useful strategy for me to use. But just going back to physical, there's also the rest in the form of exercising.
And creating the boundaries so you do have time to exercise. And the
Yeah.
lovely thing is once you've created those little holes in your diary where you've said you will exercise, particularly if you've shared that hole with anyone else, shared that boundary, the need to do it, to fill it, you just can't miss it because you've pass the boundary on to someone else.
But then there's
Yeah.
also naturally is again going down the modeling route.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you say energy is infectious, and if you're saying that I exercise, I don't know, twice a week on my really after my really busy days, a student might think, "Oh, maybe that might work for me." It's a balance, isn't it, between honesty and honestly dishonesty.
Yeah. Knowing the things that we aim for and being honest at the fact that we don't get there, but this is what we'd like to try. And maybe actually having mentees around where they can sometimes be the things that keep us honest. If we've disclosed, yes, this Sunday I'm going for a hike, going to go 5-6 miles out around the thing. And if you've told the mentee and they've gone, yeah, that's a really good, I'm doing my own hikes, then you're kind of forced into doing it. There's a wonderful backwards and forwards that goes on between mentor and mentee. It's not always just, well, it's never just one way.
It's
So,
never top. It's if you're a good mentor, it's never top down.
yeah. And we do this by sharing our thoughts about our boundaries and our desires, the things we want to do and the things that we want to stop doing. It works quite well. For me, it worked particularly well. There was a couple of years where, and this was the earlier years of Twitter, I did find myself going on a bit. In fact, the other time you used the word doom scrolling earlier, during the pandemic, I was really bad
Mm.
for doom scrolling, going through that kind of stuff. And actually, I shared with some students during the time, but I was going to try and cut it down, that I was modeling that you fall off the rails and you get back on again, and creating social media boundaries as, returning to sort of social media rest. Really, really important. There is a draw in social media that, particularly with the little notifications that say, has somebody read this? Has somebody liked? Has somebody, reposted? One of my boundaries quite early on was turning off those notifications. They're still there if I want to go and look them. They're never at the front page of my phone and they never bleep at me.
No, but I think we've briefly touched on this, haven't we? About the modes, especially on the whole Apple ecosystem, which
Yes.
we've openly said we're fans of.
Yeah.
It's the incessant, non-applicable to you notifications that drive me insane. I've got it set so I don't get any notifications for any social media unless I open the app
Yeah.
because it
I,
helps
I,
me not. And sometimes another little tip is actually an Apple Note. You can delete the app off your home, like your home screen, so it's not there for you to automatically click on. It's there if you search for it and you can open it. Tell you the first couple of days, I really noticed how we're just tapping where the apps were. And that's been a really helpful strategy when I want to have some time that's take a step back from the social media.
oh,
And that's a boundary that I put in place.
I actually put a software boundary in place, and I'm
Mm.
just opening up now. It just takes a little while to open up. I wouldn't say I've got a crippling Reddit addiction, but I do like to read Reddit for about half an hour or so, at least once a week, shall we say? Maybe more often, just because I like news, I like opinions, I like the way that things go. But I have an app called One Set, which
So,
every time I open up Reddit, it automatically, because of shortcuts, opens up the One Set. And the One Set app very slowly scrolls across my screen and gives me actually about 4 seconds to realize, do I want to go to Reddit today?
brilliant.
And it just gives me that extra minute. And occasionally and mindfully, I will say, yes, there is my boundary. And I won't go and visit it. But I've created a software boundary to remind me what my real boundaries are. One,
Check that one out.
um, we're coming towards the end, so it's time for me to say thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Brian, as always.
If you have questions, we would love to hear from them at neuromentoringpodcast@gmail.com.
This has been Neuromentoring. Be
Brilliant.